Hey folks, we're back. Okay, so before we jump into this particular episode, I just wanted to make a quick correction. The quote that I gave in the earlier episode wasn't from Martin Luther King. It was actually from a guy called Josh Billings. I had to do a quick checkup, to be sure I wasn't misleading you guys. So the correct quote was actually from Josh Billings, and it says, "Adversity has the same effect on a man that severe training has on a pugilist or a boxer. It reduces him to his fighting weight." So that's essentially the quote, and it really speaks to what we were saying before about potential. You know, you're never, or you don't really get to tell what your potential is until circumstances come your way that requires you to fight or requires you to dig deep into the person that you actually are. So Josh Billings, not Martin Luther King. Okay, so to this episode, we're going to talk about something interesting, an interesting concept. But before I tell you what that is, I'm going to give you a quote that really describes what it's all about. And the quote is this: "Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime." I'll say that again. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Now, obviously, what that is implying is that merely giving somebody something is worth much less than giving them the ability to do that thing for themselves, right? Because when they do that thing for themselves, they're able to own it and they're able to utilize it, to give themselves a much better life, right? But that quote is an example of something called parallelism. Parallelism. Parallelism, if in effect, means that you could be looking at something in one way, but the other side of it, right, it has the opposite effect. And the use of those different parallels in that quote, "Give a man a fish and teach a man a fish," it's almost saying the same thing, right? But the difference in the two words, give and teach, really makes all the difference because it depends on the way you're looking at it. It depends on your perspective, which is really interesting because I'm not sure if we understand the full implication or if we know the full implication of parallelism, in our daily lives, because most of us have a particular perspective of how we think life is, right? So, for the great deal of people who are living lives based on the daily grind, they get up, they go to work, and it's all about the 9 to 5 and what they can get, the sort of salary they will get at the end of the month, and the things they're able to do, that would keep body and soul together, as it were. For them, that is life. And that is the life that they're used to. That is the life that society has, in effect, constructed for them. The life that they think is, that's it. You leave school, you get a job, and then you go to work and you earn a salary and, all of that. But on the same planet, right, in the same lifetime, perhaps even in the same city, there are other people who are living lives that have amazing significance. In the same lifetime, we're not talking about people who are living or who lived 100 years apart. We're talking about people in the same lifetime. It could even be your neighbor, the guy across the street. You're here, you're doing your best to make ends meet. He's over there, and it seems that everything he does, just turns to gold. And you're wondering, is this guy coming from Mars or something? I think a great deal of the difference between the lives most people are living and the lives that they see other people living boils down to parallelism, right? Because it's really all about perspective. If you think that your life is supposed to follow a particular trajectory, that is really all you're going to get, right? But if you decide to take a different viewpoint, a different perspective, you could find you could find out that there's really much more to life than all you have been living. And I think for the people who describe as great achievers, have that concept at the back of their minds or even at the front of their minds, but they know something about parallelism. They know that it's really not about the hand you're dealt, it's really about what you do with the hand that you're dealt. A hand really is, when we're talking about cards, when we're dealing cards, when you're dealt a hand, we're saying that life has dealt us this hand. And most people just accept it that this is the life, that's the life that I've been dealt with, the card I've been dealt with by life. So whether it's for them, the sort of family they grew up in, the sort of environments they grew up in, there's educational circumstances or whatever, their belief is that, this is what happened. I can't change it. I'll just have to make the most, or the best use of it as I can. But some other people are like, this is what I've been dealt with. Now, what can I do to ensure that I change the situation? It's the same person with the same circumstance, but different perspective, different parallelism, right? So we talk about heaven and earth a lot. And people think it's just a matter of, when you die, you go to a particular place called heaven if you've been good. If you've been bad, you go to another place called hell. But do you know that you can experience heaven and hell right here on the earth even before you die? Because it's a question of your perspective, is the question of how you think life should be, right? Because we're all living a particular life, or we've all been introduced to life as it seems to be. But there are some people who make it even in being this in the same sort of adverse circumstances as some other people. Some people will make it and some people will not because of perspective, parallelism, right? It's the same thing, but different trajectories for different people. That even though they seem to be going through the same sort of life, their perspectives are different, such that they're living different lives or they have different outcomes. So parallelism is an interesting concept that I think has a major role to play in the way we view life and the life that we get or that we make for ourselves. And this really has a great deal to do with becoming, right? Because for as long as you think that, yeah, becoming is a nice idea, but you really can't do much about your life, that is exactly what you're going to get. But if you decide that no matter what hand you've been dealt, no matter what life throws at you, you will always use it as a stepping stone or as fodder to achieve something more, then you will begin to experience a different sort of life, right? So, parallelism, key concept, not to be forgotten.